Hey there, my name is Ryan. In this video, we're going to review the board game Azul. Now, if you've never played Azul before, we're going to start this out with a short explanation of the rules so you can see how it works, so the review will hopefully make more sense to you. If you already know how to play Azul, of course, feel free to skip down to the chapters below and jump ahead to the review. Now, there's basically two major parts to Azul. There is picking up all of these tiles in the first place, which we'll go over in a minute. But then there's also how to place them on your player board. We're going to start with how to place them on your player board. So on your player board, you have a whole bunch of spots that the tiles can go eventually. But when you pick tiles, you must put them into one of these 5 rows here. So if I was to take this one yellow, I could put it anywhere. I could go into this row, that one, that one, that one. You always put it in the space closest to the 5x5 grid here. Now, if I pick another yellow, I cannot go into a different row. I must go into that same row as that first yellow. So I can add to the back of this. As you can see, this row here has 3. So later, I could pick a third yellow and go here. As we'll see in a second, you also have the possibility of picking 3 yellows at once. So I could possibly get all 3 and put them right there, or get 3 and put them here with the hopes of filling another space later on. Now that yellow's in that row, yellow can't go anywhere else. But if I pick a black, this black could go here, 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 or here. Same would be true if I picked 2 blacks. Let's say I picked 2 blacks and put them right here. Later on the turn, I would have pick a blue and go here. And then I pick another 2 blues. Now I could go here in the middle, but let's say I go here on the bottom and try to fill this bottom row up. And then I was to pick 2 reds. Now let's say during the round I pick an additional blue. Now this is kind of interesting. It cannot go here because there's not a space. There's only one available here. It also can't go into any other row because first of all they're taken, and also you can only have one row with blue in it. So this must fall to the cathedral floor. So it's going to go all the way down here and be worth -1 point at the end of the round. Now let's say at the end of the tile drafting portion of the round, this is all I have on my board. This is what I have. Then we go to scoring. Starting from the topmost space, the space is just 1, any row that is completed, that is, has all of the spaces filled, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, that it has available, move over. So in this case, this one blue space is all it needs. This is going to move over to this available spot here. Now this scores 1 point. We'll get into different scoring here in just a second. This space is also full. We only need the front one though. We only have 1 spot for a black, so this extra one just gets discarded. This is going to move over to here. This actually scores 2 points because there's a row of 1, 2. So we had 1 over here, and then we have 1, 2. This red is not completed. It is just not quite there. If I could have put a third red there, this would also have slid over, but it's not completed. This yellow is also completed here, so we're going to slide over one of the yellows to right here. It's not touching anything else, so it's only worth 1 point. All the rest go away. And the other tiles remain on the board. This one here comes off. It is -1. So at the end of the turn here, I have 1 point, 2, 3, and then 4 points total. Then -1, I end the round with 3 points. The 2 reds and the 2 blues would stay on for the next round. Now let's look at a few situations here. Let's say I have the option of picking this blue tile. Well, this blue tile can't go here, 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 because all the spots are filled. But now it also may not go here, because that would be on the same row of a blue that's already filled in. So if you were forced to take this tile, it would just go down here to the cathedral floor. Now let's look at a few scoring situations here. If this was your setup at the end of this round, this one blue would move over to here. This is worth 1 point. It's not touching any in the row or the column. Next, your next row move over. This is actually interesting. This is going to slot right in here. It's going to score 1, 2, 3 points for being part of that column, but also 1, 2 for being part of the row. So not only does this score 1, this piece right here also scores 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So you double count the piece if it's part of a row and a column. This red also does this. It's going to come over here and be part of a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So for this round, we had 1 right here. Then this one comes in. It gets to count the one we just added. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 points. That's basically it for this portion, except I will say down here at the bottom, there are a few bonus points at the end of the game. If you complete a row, it's worth 2 points at the end of the game. If you complete a column, it's worth 7 points at the end of the game. If you have all of the color filled in, so you have all the yellow spaces or all the blue spaces filled in, you get 10 bonus points. Now let's see how we get those tiles onto our player board. This is set up for a 2-player game with 5 factories. Each factory has 4 different tiles on it. The way you draft tiles is you pick a color to choose on a single factory. So let's say the player chooses these 2 blues right here. You may take these 2 blues. You must take all. You cannot take 1 blue. You must take all of the colors. In this case, you must take these 2 blues and put them on your player board. All remaining tiles in that factory then go to the middle. Now, a player could also choose to take just one red, since only one red is here, and all these go here. If they wanted to have more reds than that, they could definitely take these 3 reds over here and put them on their player board and move that 1 black to the middle. So as the round progresses, players might take a red, put on their player board, the rest move to the middle. Maybe another player also wants a red, they want 2 red here. These 2 move to the middle. Maybe a player wants to take these 3 yellows. This will move to the middle. Anytime a player wants to, they are free to take a tile from the middle, as long as there's at least one tile other than this number 1 here. I didn't talk about this yet, but this is the go first token for the next round. It starts in the middle. You can't take it till there's at least one tile available to take in the middle. Once there is one tile available, anytime a player takes from the middle, the first one to do it must take this go first token. Taking from the middle has the exact same rules. If you want to take this black, you must take all the blacks from the middle. And again, if you're the first one to do it, take the go first token. Just to clarify, if you take the go first token for the next round, it doesn't fit into any spot. It actually automatically falls to your floor and is -1. So you get -1 points for the privilege of going first in the next round. Alright, so that's how it works. Let's jump right into some things that the game does really well. First of all, these tiles feel good. They're just slightly heavier than you expect them to be when you pick up a tile like this. They're not heavy, but just that slight feel of quality that when you hand it to someone, they first touch it, they go like, ooh, this feels good. It's not just, a really light wood piece or a really cheap plastic feel. It has a nice feeling to it. Also, these boards are kind of nice. They're large. They're a little stronger quality than maybe you typically expect from a player board. They're just kind of a nice big thing to sit in front of each player and just kind of clearly kind of defines. Like I talked about, the grid is important and it's pretty clearly stated which pieces go where. There's also an alternative side where you can freely put things here. The same rules apply to one color per row and column, but it gives you that alternative, play strategy if you want to give that a shot. As far as mechanically what's done well, I think what made this game so popular and why it works so well is it did a pretty good job of giving players some control over what takes place in the game. You can sort of figure out, okay, I want to take these reds because that will force this to the middle. I know they don't want to take that tile, so I might try to gather a few blues for myself. It gives you some power over the game, and every player's kind of trying to jump in there and do their thing in the middle. But there's also a good degree of randomness. It's not a pure strategy game like chess where you're in complete control of everything that could possibly happen. There's still quite a bit of randomness. You don't know what's going to flip up the next round. You might hit the go first token for the next round, and you don't really like what's put out there. It also has a good amount of control, and the game ends when one person finishes one row. So you don't have to finish your row. The game might only take 5 rounds though, because once 5 pieces are put in there, typically the top row's first one to finish, and those 5 are in there, the game is over. But you also have some control. Maybe you have 4 finished in one of your rows, and no one else has 4 yet, and you want the game to extend one more round because you feel like you have a good scoring opportunity coming up. You have the options of not filling that last one, delaying the game another round and trying to get a big score in there, or if you feel like you have the best chance of winning now, ending it now. So it gives you a good amount of player control in the middle of this whole randomly drawing tiles kind of system. I only have one small thing in what I put in the clearly flaw category, and that's this little tiny scoring token thing compared to these nice pieces. This is light. It's on a board that gets bumped and moved around quite a bit. It's just very easy to knock over. So I wish there was a slightly better way to keep score in this game, just because it is light, easy to, you could blow it across the table, and you're always reaching across and dragging tokens onto your board, and you're doing it over top of your score tracker. So it doesn't seem like the best placement for the score. Okay, so things that I like. It has a high amount of player interaction, especially at a 2-player game. But there's a lot of this thinking about, okay, I really don't want to be stuck with, maybe there are 4 reds out there you really don't want to get stuck with, because you're worried if you get stuck with those 4 reds, you won't have anywhere to put them. They're all going to dump to the floor and be worth a bunch of negative points. So maybe though you dump a black on purpose to force another tile to the middle that you think someone else might take, and if they take that, maybe you're safe on the red front because you won't be the one that's stuck with the reds. Or maybe you pick from the middle one to try to delay the turn so it gets past you, so you're not stuck with that last pick, because someone has to kind of pick the last chunk. So there is a good amount of player interaction. That actually leads right into my second positive, which is especially at a 2-player game, this game is pretty fascinating. We'll talk about what happens at 3 or 4 in a little bit, but at 2-player the game, it's almost one of these games, the more you play, the less and less you play the game and you're thinking about making the optimal move, and the more and more you're trying to get into the mind of your opponent. Like, maybe you really want these 2 blues, but you don't want to just go out there and grab one blue because they'll take the other blue. You know, maybe there's only 2 blues out there in all the factories. And if you just go blue and put it there in your number 2 spot, and they look down and say, ooh, if I give you that blue, it gives you a column, that's 7 points. They take the other blue. So maybe you subtly like try to avoid the blue for a while and get it pushed to the middle, and hopefully they push one to the middle. Maybe even sometimes you give your opponent a good move where you make the red so tempting for them, they take the red, which forces the other blue one you really want the whole time to the middle. But of course your opponent, if you play especially with the same person a lot, they're thinking, are they trying to trick me here? They really want this. Or there are times where you start to round out and you just take a piece and you just dump in your cathedral floor because you're like, I know you want that one. But maybe you didn't really do it, really did. It's just this whole game, you're trying to get into each other's heads pretty well. So again, it's almost like a game within a game, especially 2 players. It has that good amount of interaction where you're really interested in what they're doing. Of course, in a 2-player game, you keeping a point from them is as good as you scoring a point for yourself. So this has a lot of that good interaction at that player count. Another thing kind of relates to that drafting mechanism is you have to take all of a color. So there are definitely times you see your opponent has a spot to put 3 blues, and if they put 3 blues there, it's going to be a killer score for them, and there are 3 blues sitting in the middle. So you take a tile that you kind of want. Maybe you're 50-50 on 2 tiles, but if you're paying attention, you can take the tile that sends 2 more blues to the middle. So now if they take 5 blues, they have to take all of them, and 2 are going to fall to the cathedral floor, which is the negative score at the bottom, which is going to hurt their score, and it kind of mitigates some of that good move they have. So this game has a lot of those type of things where you're always kind of interested in the whole, people have to take all of something. So what, not what color do you want, but how many of that color you want ends up being important. Even though I'm talking about a lot of deeper strategy thing, the thing I like about this game, though, is the strategy is pretty on the surface. Even though I talk about these strategies that they're really deep, it's not that they're deep, they're just interesting. When I teach this to new players, even people who maybe don't play a lot of strategy board games, they immediately start catching on to, oh, okay, I want to keep this from you. I want this for myself. Or, okay, if I take this pile, you take that pile, I'm stuck with this at the end. So I'm going to go ahead and take this one now. Now you're stuck with this one. So things like that, they don't seem to be that hidden below the surface. People can really start catching on to what you're trying to do. Now actually implementing your strategy is kind of difficult, but the strategy is pretty available to new players pretty quickly. Okay, so my next preference thing, again, maybe seems a little petty, but if you know me, I like theme. But I can also play a game that's themeless. It annoys me a little bit when a game pretends to have theme. Azul brings you a tile-lading artist to embellish the walls of the royal palace of Evora. I'm not exactly how to say Evora, but no, I mean, you're putting the tiles on the grid and you're trying to make it match up. I remember reading some of the promotional content online. It was very much like, oh, this is just, you're making a beautiful cathedral. Nah, not really. I mean, I can't say when I play this game, I'm sitting here thinking, wow, me and Michelangelo, we're like right there, you know. We're not really Michelangelo, he didn't use these sort of tiles, stained glass tiles, but you know what I mean. I don't feel like an artist making this beautiful picture. I'm just like, yeah, I'm trying to fill the grid in the right way, and it does look good. I'm not saying it doesn't look good on the table. It is nice. Like people, again, they like the weight of the cubes, how they feel. They like the way it looks on the board, how it lays out. But when games just say like, oh, by the way, there's this theme here, and you're an artist, like, nah, you're trying to make a cool grid, and you're trying to get the colors to work out. Just kind of like the theme doesn't really do much in this one. Alright, so really the only preferencing I have against the game, I kind of hinted towards earlier, happens to 3 and 4 player counts. The other things I mentioned and the rule teaching, I think it kind of has to happen. The theme is kind of annoying, but I typically just teach this game and say, hey, you're trying to fit this grid. I don't heavily rely on the theme. This one kind of, it matters to me. When you're playing at 3 and 4 players, you have a lot less control over what happens. It becomes a little more of a solo game where you're just trying to make your grid work and take what's available out there. Maybe you're like, someone took that 2 from me, but you do a lot fewer, I hate to use the word mean because I don't view it as mean. You do a lot fewer strategic things in the game where you're like, okay, you need the 2 reds. So I'm going to put a red in the middle, so now there's 3 reds, and now it's less desirable for you. When you're playing 4 players, maybe you're looking at the player next to you on the left and thinking, I shouldn't give them the ideal setup, but you really can't control the board. So in a 2-player game, another reason it's like a mind game is because you can definitely kind of have some control over who has to take the last piece from the middle, because depending on if you group together groups, there could be 4 draws left, But if you take something from an edge factory and you move blue from the outside to the middle, now there could only be 3 draws left because you don't have to pick a blue and pick a blue. And now that's one group. So you have a lot, like I said, 2 players, great. 3 and 4 is still good. You just lose some of that interaction. I noticed when I played at 3 or 4 players, it does become more that everyone's sitting around doing their own thing. Just, maybe people get a little more annoyed maybe because there's the expectation. It's like, oh, I want that plaque and you're being mean to me, you're picking on me. Or I would say that hurts the interaction of the game a lot, 3 and 4 players. I also don't think 3 and 4 players is as replayable. It's a little more, this is what I did my grid, cool. Again, at a 2-player game, you get that replayability of, okay, the next time I play the game, I know last time you only went for rows and you rushed to the end of the game. And we played this game 5 times, and every time you just went for rows and you rushed to the end of the game. And then you play someone, you're expecting that, then they don't rush to the end of the game. They're just taking their time. You're like, I didn't have a long-term strategy. So you can probably tell from my review, I feel like Azul is a really good game for certain groups of people. If you kind of have a group of 3 or 4 players, doesn't play more than 4, but 3 or 4, and you just want kind of that family game to bring out and to be in your rotation. I think it's a good game to be in rotation. I don't think it's a game you can't miss out on. If you think it looks beautiful and you like, I think it does look good. I wasn't saying earlier I don't think it looks good. I just think the theme is kind of weak. But if you think it looks good, you kind of like to puzzly fill in where things go. A little more strategic, not as strategic as chess, because it's not a pure strategy game. There is the luck, but a lot more strategic than a dice game. If you like that kind of thing, your family likes that kind of, you really think that around, go, what would be the best move here? I think it'd be good. Again, good one for a rotation. So the other group of people would be just people who are really any skill level, people who play light games, people who play medium, maybe even heavier games. It wouldn't be a heavy game for you. But if you like more pure strategy games, this game is not going to be as pure as chess or a completely deterministic pure strategy game, but it has quite a bit of strategy where I'm going to take that from you, or I need that. Of 2 players, it could kind of be your game. If you got into kind of the way it looks and you like the whole, there's the factories and how those things dump to the middle, if that appeals to you, I could see a couple playing this 50 or 100 times and having a good time with it. Or you have a regular person that you play with and you typically need a 2-player game, I could see it being a consistent game. So 2 groups of people I think it really appeal to. Again, is someone who kind of wants it in that rotation of games where your group plays once in a while. I don't think it's a game that a group will necessarily play, 4-player game. Tell me in the comments. If this is your thing and your group loves this game and I'm missing something with the strategy, please let me know. I just haven't loved the game at 3 and 4 players. I feel like it wouldn't be a game that if I played it in my group that's more 3, 4, 5 players, I don't think the next week I'd be like, hey guys, let's pull out Azul again. Let's pull out Azul again. People be like, oh, that was cool. That was fun. I'm glad we did that. I like it. But not something I'm just dying to do again the next time we get together. Alright, thanks for watching. That is my thoughts on the game Azul. Hope you liked it. Please let me know in the comments below if you have any questions about it. Also, subscribe to the channel so you can see me more often. See the new videos when they come out. See some board game rules explanations, how to play, some reviews, and some playthroughs. See you then.